Hello, this is Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to share tools for transformation to live your highest truth. One thing that's true for me is that I like to eat. I love to eat, but I also love learning about what eating can do for us and how mindful eating can really make a difference in our lives. So, who better to talk to us than my special guest, Melanie Marquis? Melanie has written a book called The Cookbook of Shadows. And Melanie, let me know what this means. What does shadows mean in context of a cookbook?
Well, witches use something called a Book of Shadows, which is basically a collection of all our spells and seasonal rituals and things like that. It's very personalized to different magical working groups. So I wrote this cookbook with the idea in mind to incorporate magic into your cooking and to show people how to be more mindful in their cooking and to develop their own recipes and use the recipes in the book. It's very personalizable. So I thought the Cookbook of Shadows would be a great title for the book to kind of reflect that it's not just a cookbook, it's also a magic book.
No, I love that. I love that. You know what? I want to go kind of broad on the whole concept of shadows. I mean, because a lot of times we think of shadows as being, darker, maybe not as light. So go ahead. I mean, I have my own thoughts on it, but I'd like to, as a wise woman, I would love to get your take on why we refer to it as shadows and then how we would launch into the wisdom that's in your book.
Well, if you think about what a shadow actually is, you have to have light to have shadow. And it's kind of like, light shines on something, and the shadow is made by basically like our reflection almost. It shows, it's like what's inside is kind of like our form or impression that we leave on the world, or mark that we leave on the world, that's from kind of from within us, but it shows up outside of us. And when we cook, we do that a lot. We share our food with others often, and lots of us that love to cook love to share our food with others. So we're kind of presenting people with this aspect of ourselves when we share a meal with people. So the book has all kinds of ways to explore your own shadows through cooking and to share those aspects of yourself with others.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I really feel that food preparation and sharing food is a great way to create some mindfulness, some awareness of the magic that can be put into it. Because, I mean, think about baking and just the whole practice of selecting ingredients, stirring, right? We're putting energy into it. In fact, my friend Marco, he loves to grind his coffee beans every morning and put his own personal energy into those beans before he then does a beautiful drip process. So very, very natural and I think infused with energy and certainly love. And I think it matches basically what your body needs if you infuse some of that prana, if you will, that energy into it.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us naturally cook magically because, as you mentioned, a lot of us cook with love. And it's true that food does taste better when it's cooked with love. We put our energy into it. And it is like you mentioned, baking, it is like this alchemy where we're putting these different ingredients together. And that's the same thing a witch does in spell work is they'll take these different elements of, of the universe and combine them and kind of mix that all together to create the realities more that we like. So we do the same thing in cooking to take, scraps of different ingredients and combine them and to make something new and wonderful. So to me, magic and cooking goes hand in hand, and it's just wonderful to be more mindful with your eating. There's so much that can be done with putting our own intentions into it.
Yeah, very much so. So what came first for you, the cooking or the magic?
And I would say both kind of
Yeah,
simultaneously. I kind of grew
makes
up
sense.
doing both.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead and tell us some stories. I mean, I read a little bit of the intro of your book and how family was very important in the guidance of your, sort of awakening around cooking.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up on the Arizona border, right, the Arizona Mexico border. So that's my dad grew up in the Grand Canyon actually. So I have a lot of the Southwestern influence in my cooking and lots of Mexican style recipes in there. My mom is from the South, from Georgia. So I kind of got both worlds there with my culinary world. And we also grew up kind of poor. So a lot of my recipes are based on real just simple basic ingredients that most people, you might already have in your house. I was one thing that fascinated me about cooking when I was little is the idea that you can take little scraps of stuff that, it wouldn't be enough to feed one person on its own, but you can combine these things and make something delicious for a whole family. So I just thought that was fascinating type of magic that I wanted to learn myself. And to this day, I love making something out of, like just whatever scraps I have in my refrigerator. I feel like a real winner. I'm like, I made this in a tasty soup, and it was just, something most people would throw away. I think
No,
it's
I
really,
love that.
really good.
Well,
Yeah,
and one thing I'm also hearing from that, Melanie, is you're not wasting.
yeah,
Right. So, I mean, you did it out of necessity when you were younger, but now as an adult, I mean, just making sure that you go ahead. It's like, I've got a potato. What am I going to do with this? And really, right, rather than just, I don't know. I think you're really putting it into play.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I even talk about that in my book actually. So I think it's an important way to honor our food is to not be wasteful with it because it's a way to honor not only our food but honor ourselves and honor the fact that we're all part of this creation. Because we can just go to the store and buy a bag of potatoes, most of us, but we don't really think about the workers that grew those potatoes, the sunlight that poured into those potatoes, the ground that supported those potatoes, and the rain that fell on them. And it's all that. So to waste that, it's kind of just like tossing away all this effort and energy that's been put into that one singular potato. So and that's one thing that my family really drove into me is don't waste any food. So I try to pass that along to people. So I think it's really helpful to build the magic of your food, to just be mindful of it and to honor the food.
Waste not, want not. Here, I'll give you a specific example. Maybe you have some ideas for me. I have an orange tree in my yard, and it's right now, it's got so many oranges, and it smells so great when I cut them open. It just smells amazing. And I want to do something with the peel because I mean it's great. I juice it, I'm eating the flesh, but these orange peels they're so beautiful. And I know you can zest it a little bit, so I mean, this is one thing that I'm going to do some homework on. It's I don't want to waste those peels. There's something about them. I mean, I know there's something like candied orange peel and different things. So I'm going to try to figure out how to use that entire fruit. If you've got any tips for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you can actually just use orange peels as part of like a potpourri mixture,
Oh,
or
true.
just like a fresh potpourri. Just put the orange peel in some water to simmer and let that scent fill your house. You can add some cinnamon to it, and that's really good to do. And like you said, yeah, zest it. You can make an orange cake. I've got a recipe for that in my book, I believe. And
Oh,
there's some
really?
oranges. They're really good. You might not think about it, but fruit is really good to like roast with different meats too. So you might want to try some orange with like bake it with some chicken or see how that goes.
Wow, that's a great idea. Just to incorporate it in ways, because a lot of times we think of fruit as, only sweet. So I like the idea, although we certainly put lemons on with fish, for example. So it's great. So in your book, do you give some specifics about different ingredients, such as an orange or maybe certain spices? I mean, I know we want to talk a little bit about the seasons as well. So here we are in Southern California with some citrus starting to really pop. So tell us how that works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great to use seasonal ingredients. As far as what's in my book, there's tons of ingredients mentioned. I think I have over 100 in there. There's kind of an index of ingredients that you can go to in addition to the recipes where you can just look up orange and it'll tell you what's the magical properties of orange and tell you a little bit about how to use that in cooking and whatnot. And the same way with spices and stuff. And like you're saying, you're in California. I think it's important to honor our local ingredients, and it's just another way to connect with the seasons is to use our seasonal fruits, vegetables, use the spices that we have available at those times. And most of us in winter aren't as blessed to be in California, so the growing season is kind of like over for a lot of us. So you eat a lot of like root vegetables and garlic and onions and things like that.
Right? That can store. So let's talk about the seasonality in terms of holiday. Now, certainly, as I think about celebrations such as Yule, Christmas or Yule, there would be specific perhaps recipes or foods that maybe have been passed along that are traditional, different countries, but also different traditions, if you will, like certain practices and magical practices, pagan practices. So do you go into that in your book at all? Is that something that's covered?
Yeah, I do. I have seasonal recipes in there for different for the seasons, and also I mentioned Yule. I have some special recipes for that. I like to make what I call special memories fudge. It's flavored with orange and I think a little bit of cinnamon in there. To me, it just helps to just solidify the memories of the season and to honor that. And that's a recipe I actually created myself. I think that's one thing I want to mention when we're talking about traditions is not all of us have had like a good upbringing, and we don't all have these like special family traditions, but we can actually create our own traditions and pass these along to friends or strangers even, and just celebrate ourselves. I think it's really important to honor the seasons in our own way that feels special to us. So I'll just suggest, think about what scents do you associate with this time of year? Do you like cinnamon? Do you like nutmeg? Do you like chocolate? Chocolate always comes to mind for me every season,
Pretty
especially.
much every holiday for me, Valentine's, Easter. So no, but that's but no, certainly. And I mean, it's wonderful to think about. I mean, a lot of times we get our histories from Northern European traditions, right? So it's dark, it's cold. You need those warming, comforting
Yeah,
treats, right?
I like cardamom a whole lot for this time of year. I'll add that to like hot chocolate, to coffee, to whipped cream. It goes really well with cinnamon and chocolate flavors.
I put it in my oatmeal.
Oh, nice. That's a
Any
good idea.
excuse to use cardamom, I'm a big fan. One of the things I noticed in your book is, and one of the chapters is cooking through the elements. And I just wanted to ask your advice on how do you know the element associated with certain spices? Again, this goes into traditional surveys. So, for example, with cinnamon, which has some warmth to it, is that automatically associated with the element of fire in a practice of witchcraft or whatever term, how whatever term we'd like to use for that?
Yeah, I would say most often cinnamon is associated with fire for sure. Also, it can be associated with earth. A lot has to do with how the spice grows and what it looks like, what it feels like. But it's interesting. If you really think about, like, a lot of the spices have lots of crossovers because the elements aren't really separated in nature, and they're not in our food either. It
Sure.
takes water, it takes the sun, it takes the soil, it takes the air to make a plant. And I think like the radish is a good example that I talk about in my book because the radish grows underground. Lots of the plants that grow underground we associate with the earth element, like carrots, potatoes, all your root vegetables like that. The tubers that we eat are most often associated with the earth because they grow underground. But the radish is also, it's very fiery. It has that bite to it. So that kind of associates it with the fire element is red color. So that's again fire. But on the inside, it's white, it's cool, it's watery. So it's kind of like the water element. And then if you look at the leaves of the radish, they're very kind of lacy, and lots of the plants like that that have kind of the airy look like that are associated with the air element. So
Okay.
the radish is like the platypus of the vegetable world, in my opinion. But people don't always agree on it, so I think it's important to pay attention to like where these correspondents come from. And I think if something feels right to you, just go with what you feel on it. And I think as long as you know where it's coming from and it makes sense to you, that's going to be an accurate association for that.
Well, I think that's nice that you're giving us permission to use our own instincts, and even encouragement to use our own instincts and not feel that we have to rigidly follow exact. I mean, certainly in spells, it's good to know that, but I think sometimes you need to know the rules to then be able to break them. I'm not suggesting that we're breaking rules, but I think you are inviting some flexibility and evolution with it, right?
Yeah,
These recipes.
kind of like in art, like they say, to make abstract art, you need to know, technical art first, then you can make abstract art. So I
That's
think,
cool.
knowing where it comes from, and not just, it's not just like making something up, but like if you have justification for like, well, say like, well, my brother really liked, strawberries, and my brother was really funny, so strawberries make me laugh. I associate them with humor. Like if you have something personal like that, I think that's absolutely valid, and it's important to honor those.
Yeah, that's a great way. That's a great way of looking at that. Thank you for offering that up. And again, in your book, that chapter will help if you, I mean, you mentioned what 100 different foods and giving a little, some association, some deeper knowledge as to the magical properties of those foods, correct?
Yeah, definitely. There's even actually, we built into the book space for people to add their own correspondences too, because I mentioned some folklore and beliefs that I have about these ingredients that just come from my own personal practice and life experiences and things I've picked up along the way. But we all have our own experiences, and you might have a note like, well, the orange, I associate oranges with this particular thing or whatever it might be. So and throughout the book, there's little spaces that you can actually write in the book and write your own notes in there. So that's another thing that makes it be like a cookbook of shadows and not just a
Right.
regular cookbook, because it invites, personalizing it, writing in
Oh,
it.
that's beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to see an actual book at some point. So, what are some other foods that you would maybe associate with the Yule season? Just because we happen to be taping it close to Christmas time, we're just a couple weeks away from the longest night. So, any other foods that you associate with this time?
Hmm. Well, let's see. I guess chocolate is my main one, but I've already mentioned that. Since it's a cold time of year, I think it's a real good time for potatoes and foods like that that we tend to store over the winter to kind of
Right.
fortify our energies. And I like to have like potatoes, sweet potatoes, some carrots, some onions, things like that. Like roasted vegetables, I think are real good at this time. Like garlic can kind of fortify your energies, and
Nice.
but Yule is a celebration of the light returning. So you mentioned oranges. I think actually are excellent way to celebrate the Yule, because in a place like California, they might be harvested right now, or you can preserve these in some ways. Like it's just an excellent way to bring that light energy and to celebrate that throughout the season. Anything that makes you feel warm.
I think it's true. And I used to always eat a lot of they were more the tangerines or the little cute those little cuties. Remember what I'm talking about that are so easy to peel? And I remember always eating a ton of those. And I think it's good because it's extra vitamin C during a time where cold and flu season may be kicking up. So I think there is interesting how those show up at the very perfect time.
That's a good point. Yeah, they're often stocking stuffers. Because I mean now we mostly have all these vegetables and fruits all year round in most places, thanks to greenhouses and things like that. So we can use all these things year round, and oranges are a great one. Vanilla also, I feel like it's very like warming, and
Yeah.
also has properties to help protect our health and give some benefits to us as well.
That's a great suggestion too, and I like that. I love that you're giving us just little hints at some of the qualities of these as well as recipe ideas. So it's making me very hungry. I can't lie. So one of the other chapters is celestial cooking. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so that basically it talks about foods that are associated with different planetary energies, like Mercury, Mars, Venus, all the different planets and solar ingredients, lunar ingredients. So basically, if you're wanting to do some magic that particularly connects with one of these planets and the energies associated with those planets for like astrological magic purposes, or say the moon is in the house of Scorpio, and you want to connect with these energies, and you can see like what other planets are in that house at that time, and you want to bring that into your cooking, things like that. It can help you give ideas for that, for how you can connect to like a certain planetary energies with your cooking.
Tell us about cooking during a time of, say, the full moon. What
Uh,
goes, what would work best in your opinion, and what would be some mindful practices one might incorporate?
well, the full moon is a great time for magic. It's a great time for manifesting, for growing things in our lives, things we want to attract and increase in our life. Just as the moon grows bigger and full, like I think that's kind of a natural type of magic. Like, I think people that don't even practice magic, we always see the full moon and it just gives us this special feeling. It opens up the world of like mystery and possibility. And I think that actually goes back to, if you think about before we had artificial lighting, the moon is like this guiding light that it enabled us to stay up later and tell stories and, be awake because it kind of lit up the world. So it's a great time to go for your dreams, to make wishes come true. So I like on the full moon, I like to use coconut a lot in my cooking as a lunar associated ingredient. Vanilla is really good. You can use lemons, are also associated with the moon. Um,
Would you work
it,
with the water element in the case of the moon? Would that be one example, or would that be more specific to if you're creating a spell of some sort?
oh no,
Just
definitely. Yeah, I would use like water attuned ingredients to go hand in hand with the moon. So the moon's associated with the water element, and it brings all the artistry, love, emotion. It's all those things, creativity. Yes, you can also
yeah,
use watery ingredients like celery, for instance, or watermelon, even, and things like that.
yeah. Yeah, that's a great, I'm starting, it's all connecting the dots. There's things I kind of know, but you're really giving some great suggestions here for sure.
Oh, or like sea salt, because obviously, like the moon controls the tide. So, seaweed, nori, and sea salt, things like that that connect with the ocean with that water element too is a great way to bring in that lunar energy into your cooking. I just say like when you're mixing it up, whatever you're cooking or a drink you're making, just think about your intention of like what you want to manifest in your life, what you're going for, what you want to attract, and feel the emotions of that. Don't just get the visual, but feel the emotions of having what you're trying to go after, and then send that energy into your food as like an emotionally charged visualization as you stir it, as you mix it, as you cook it, however you're preparing it.
That's such a great reminder because a lot of us are probably distracted as we cook or you know, maybe we're watching the news and we're sad and we're stirring that in. So I think this is a reminder that you should be listening to an uplifting podcast like Truth Be Told Transformation whenever you're preparing your meals because it's nothing but good vibes. I think
Absolutely.
it's important to think about though, right, Melanie? I mean, I think that kind of mindfulness, because we are all running around multitasking like crazy. But boy, when it comes to how we're going to nourish ourselves, how fascinating to be. I mean, I think we know this, but Melanie and I are here to remind you the importance of really, I don't know, creating a reverence. I mean, we're talking about cooking. Of course, it should be throughout your life in general, but let's just say cooking. I mean, we know we're doing it multiple times a day. We're preparing some sort of food, ideally. Maybe not. Maybe people are eating out. But even in that eating out, you could probably create a selection process that helps with mindfulness around what we're consuming, right?
Absolutely. Honestly, it's very important to me. Like I've had troubles with eating disorder in the past where I would deprive myself of food for many days at a time in very unhealthy ways. This is something I overcome several years ago now. But it's actually a big motivation for why I wanted to write the book, because I wanted people to have another reason, another motivation to nourish themselves, like you're talking about. And it's just being mindful with your cooking allows us that time to just really focus and pay attention on, I deserve this nourishment. The people around me deserve this nourishment. I'm going to prepare this food with love, because we need to care for ourselves. We need to love ourselves first. And a lot of us have strange, unhealthy relationships with food. Let's face it, from overeating to undereating, or just, food scarcity is very, food insecurity is, it causes a lot of anxiety, especially people that have grown up with food insecurities. We can have some messed up feelings about our food. So when we do have food, even if it's humble food, I think it's very important to take the time to honor that, and like listen to something positive like your podcast when you're cooking it, or just just focus on the process of, I'm cooking this food. And when you're eating, like, one thing that's helped me in my own life is that I don't do anything else when I'm eating. I'll sit there and I'll eat my food. I'm not watching TV. I'm not on my phone. I just focus on, I'm nourishing myself and taking this food into my body right now. And I think it's really good because if you prepare your food with love and prepare it mindfully and prepare it with magic, and my book gives lots of ideas for how you can incorporate magic into that process, it reminds us that we deserve to be nourished, which is a very important thing. It reminds us that we deserve that love, we deserve that fuel, we deserve that nourishment because we're all a part of nature, we're all a part of this creation. And you have to love yourself as part of that creation in order to fully honor nature, to fully honor the universe and your place in it. It's absolutely essential to honor yourself and nourish yourself. So
I
that's
love
very
that.
to me.
I mean, that's so transformational. I mean, we're talking, that's my goal as you heard at the top of the show, tools for transformation. And I think what you just described there really is very transformational, but in a simple way. It doesn't have to be anything more complicated than mindfulness.
Hmm. Yeah, be aware of like, if you do have a strained relationship with food, like I would urge people to think about that, evaluate that, and really get into evaluating the truth of that. Like, do you have some beliefs about food that are maybe not true? Do you maybe feel like you don't deserve to eat good food? And if you feel like that, why do you feel like that? Do you feel
Yeah.
like other people don't deserve food either? If not, well, why not you? Things like that. And it's just really important to you to be mindful of that, I think, and to realize that we all deserve love and nourishment and good food.
Want to give us any little tips around charging food? I mean, we talked about stirring it with intentionality and using, some of the mindfulness that we're just describing, but are there any more specifics that you would like to share? I know there's a few in the book. I took a peek, but anything you'd like to kind of tempt us with?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, first of all, tune into that specific food that you have because you can look up, oh, carrots have this property, for instance, but each individual carrot is going to have its own specific characteristics. So I would say,
Hmm.
hold your food or hold your hand over it, with clean hands, of course. Tune into those energies and think about it. It really depends on what you want your recipe to do, what the purpose of your recipe is. So if you want it to make people be more cheerful and happy, then you're going to want to conjure this happiest feeling in your heart and soul, and try to feel that vibration in the food, feel that high vibrational energy of happiness within that food, and just kind of like magnify that and call that out. If you're not confident in sensing energies like that, you can do other things, like you can even use tarot cards or oracle cards if you're into those things, and choose a card that represents the energy that you want to bring out in that food, and then you can just place the food on that. You can also use crystals that way. You could surround your ingredients with quartz crystals with the points pointing in, and think about that qualities you want magnifying in that food.
Really cool. What about do you stir in a certain way? I mean, do you stir clockwise versus counterclockwise? Would there be anything in there that would be subtly important and influential?
Yeah, definitely. I have some ideas for that in my book, but basically what I do is I usually, if I'm drawing something in or that I want to increase, I'll go clockwise. If I want something to reduce or do away with, I'll go counterclockwise to kind of undo that. You can also make shapes with your cooking, like if you're wanting to bring out that love energy and you say you're making a romantic dinner, go ahead and stir in a heart shape and think about your loved one as you do that, or do a pinnacle for, if you want wealth to come and money, you can do like, or protection, you can do like the pinnacle shape, just like a circle with the
Sure.
star. So you're
Yeah,
stirring, yeah.
that's so
but
great.
but
That's
just
so true. What a good way to do it. Because like I said, I make oatmeal like every other day. It's just kind of hearty food. And so, but there's so many different, I mean, it's become because I do it often, I start to notice different ways to make it my own special, porridge, my own special brew, if you will. And I'm
yeah.
always making different, like I found some raw cacao and I'm making my own hot chocolate. And then I put in some cardamom, but some rose petals. And then I'm like, wow, I am being a kitchen witch right now. I mean, it's just so fun to play and take some time because sure, it'd be easy. I mean, Starbucks prepares things really nicely. I get it, but they're not going to put the joy in it that I can.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all like and all this mindful cooking stuff and like practices like you're talking about. It reminds us that we are magical and that we do have special powers as humans. We can create change in our world, in our own worlds and in the outside world. And something as simple as putting extra spices in your oatmeal or in your coffee, like it can just remind us that we are awesome and that we deserve awesome things. So that's I want my book. I'm hoping that my book will give people more ideas for simple ways to do that and to just kind of awaken that desire in everybody to be creative in the kitchen and to let your own magic shine out.
One of the other chapters is cooking with goals in mind. I don't know if I got the exact title right, but you mentioned a little bit about how one could use, say, the pentacle for to increase wealth. So, any other ideas around certain other goals and different practices? I mean, it could be maybe not even how we're cooking the food itself, but it could be ingredient selection, maybe. Other ideas around that?
Yeah, definitely. There's so many layers of magical cooking. You can, use cooking techniques like stirring a certain way, like we're talking about, or ingredient selection, or even like the utensils can be charmed that we're using. We can use bowls and dishes of certain color symbolisms. The guests, so I have a whole section also, like in addition to the elements and planetary, and just like the list of straight up ingredients, I also have a section of goals where you can look up like happiness, love, wealth, peace, different goals like that, and courage, protection. And it'll give you recipes and ingredients that are attuned with that goal. So you can either use the ingredients list to create your own recipes or use one of the recipes in there and adapt that as you like or whatnot. For wealth, I really like dark leafy greens. I think that's a real natural one. Anybody in the South is probably familiar with the New Year's tradition of you got to eat some greens on New Year's Day or you'll
Oh,
be for the whole year. So
cool.
we're collard greens or mustard greens, or if you can't get those, you can go with kale or spinach. It's just natural. It's dark green. It's like looks like money. That's a
Nice.
good nuts. I think are also a symbol of wealth and prosperity because they feed us throughout the winter and
Ah.
nuts and yeah. When you're talking about Yule, I totally forgot about nuts. I think it's a big
Oh, right.
explosive
Yeah.
for like walnuts, pecans, any kind of nut like that. But they're also good symbols for wealth for drawing that in. Cinnamon also is good for that.
Excellent. Oh my God, I'm so hungry. No, it's really cool to think about. Now, you mentioned living in Arizona and having some of the influences come in from Mexico, yet also from the South, and also beautiful deep traditions there as well. So it sounds like the offerings in your book are influenced by those two territories. Are there any other regions, or how did you flesh out your own education around a cookbook of shadows in terms of other traditions and regions that you pull from?
Well, most of the recipes are based on ones that I cook myself, so there's lots of tacos in there and lots
Yum.
of southern recipes that taste really good. But I also did create some new recipes based on like the magical effect of those. So I had to test and try things out. And being from the South, honestly, like I'm not a measurer in my cooking, so I actually had to like go through and redo all my recipes and like actually measure like in my hand, and then I'd like take the teaspoon and be like, okay, how much is this actually? Exact measurements. So it was a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, most of them are recipes that I cook myself frequently, but some I did develop specifically for the book for a magical purpose.
That's so great. And what would you say is your favorite recipe in the book?
I think it probably the Happy Monkey chocolate banana bread is my very favorite.
Oh, God. Oh my gosh, that is awesome. All right. That alone is worth finding this book for sure, Melanie. So I'd love to, one of my last questions I always like to ask my guests would be, how do you feel we're doing on our planet, on the path, on the mystical path? So tell me about how you're feeling and how you're feeling about us as a collective, Melanie. How do you think we're doing up there?
Well, I think there's definitely some concerns naturally with food insecurity for one, since we're talking about food, but with war, environmental destruction, like we have all these things that are very disturbing, that can be very depressing and make us feel very hopeless. But however, I do have hope because of individuals like you, Bonnie, and like everybody listening out there and today. We have individuals that are trying, that are doing our best to be something different, to change things. And as humans, we always have that chance to evolve. I believe that that's why we're here in this life, is to evolve, to become, as my he owned my publishing company. I wrote a book by Carl Llewellyn Westby. I have to quote him because he always said, "Become more than you are." I think that we always have this potential to become more than we are, and so does our planet. Our planet can heal. It's a living organism, and as living organisms, we can heal ourselves. We can reach this state of rebalancing things. So I do feel like there's an awakening happening right now, an awakening, where our planet is going to be healed, and through technology, through new technologies, and through new mindful practices and expansion of consciousness. I believe that we can and will turn things around, and that we can and will create a better world for the future.
That's so great. Melanie, you are speaking to us in so many important ways. And I really appreciate your overview as a wise woman, and then specifically as somebody who has a great love of food and showing us how we can do the same. So thank you so much for talking to us, and enjoy that holiday chocolate, that Yule chocolate. In fact, on the day of taping right now, it is St. Nicholas Day, right? So I think nuts and chocolate are a big celebration on this holiday from our forefathers.
Santa would definitely approve of everyone having chocolate right now. It's
Thanks so much for talking to us. And again, Melanie Marquis, Cookbook of Shadows, simple recipes for powerful magic. Out on Llewellyn, right?
that's right.
Fantastic. Blessed Yule, Melanie.
You too. Thanks so much.
Thanks everybody for watching. This has been Truth Be Told Transformation, and I'm Bonnie Burkert, here to talk to people who are doing amazing work for us on the planet. And we are here with other shows as well. Tony Sweet goes live every Friday at 3 p.m. So he loves it when everybody checks in, and we gathered the community over on YouTube, as well as Robert Hensley giving us a Minuteman report with all kinds of updates and mad wisdom as well. We are here to raise the vibe, just like Melanie was saying. We've got to come together. And one of the ways that we do this is counting on you to help share and let people know that we're here. Thanks so much for your follows, your likes, your comments. Until the next time, shine on.